Hi everybody, welcome to the brand new Sevilla circuit here in Spain. We are here to test the brand new ground up redesign of the 2025 Ducati Panigale V2 S. Now this is a bit of a shift in thinking, I think you could say, for the guys and girls at Ducati. This is the sports bike that's built more for the street. I guess it's kind of funny that we're only going to be riding it here on the racetrack. Hopefully it's going to warm up a little bit. But yeah, this is a change in thinking, I think we could say, for the brand. You know, this is a bike designed to be more of a street sports bike with the ability to turn it into more of a track weapon. You know, bikes like the 748, you know, all the way up until the V2, like when the 959 came out, especially 848, all that stuff. These bikes were all, you know, race bikes designed so that you could ride them on the street. This one is a little bit different. So we're gonna have a bit of a look at the tech stuff. There's a lot to talk about, so let's get into it.
This is Supersport reimagined. Ducati has turned the baby Panigale on its head and created an entirely new machine, one that heralds a new era in the Supersport class. Normally when you hear somebody saying a particular machine has lost a bunch of horsepower, it's a bad thing. Horsepower is king after all, especially when it comes from a Ducati. But the $18,995 2025 Ducati Panigale V2 S is a motorcycle with a few tricks up its sleeve. Yes, it's dropped a significant 35 horsepower from the 2024 Panigale V2 and that model's now outdated Superquadro L-twin. Yes, Ducati has shrunk its capacity from 955 to 890cc, and yes, the trademark desmo valves are no more, with variable valve timing on the intake side now in charge. Internet haters are most certainly going to hate on each of those glaring facts, but as we'll find out, power isn't always everything. So who better to talk about this new motor than the guy who made it? Here's a few minutes with Gianluca Zattoni, Ducati's head of engine project management.
So we've just had a session on the brand new Panigale V2 S, and I'm here with Gianluca Zattoni.
Yes.
I got it. All right. All right. He's the head of engine development basically at Ducati, and the man largely responsible for creating the new V2. Congratulations! It's a good engine.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Very, very different to the old 955 motor from the previous V2.
It is.
Yeah. Can you talk us through some of the main differences between this and the old engine?
First of all, it's the first time that Ducati start developing a new mid-displacement engine from scratch.
Right.
Because all the other mid-displacement was derived from a bigger displacement for racing, the Super Bike Championship, and so on. So, starting developing this engine, we had in mind a specific target of weight. So the most important thing of this new engine are the weight of the engine we have been able to achieve, because with its 54.4 kilos, it's the lightest Ducati V-twin ever.
Yeah, yeah.
And why a V2? A V2 90 degrees, because the V2 for Ducati has always been an expression of the sportiness for a motorcycle engine.
Well, that's been Ducati's heritage for forever.
Yes. The V2 is streamlined, it's really compact, it's unique in terms of tone and power torque delivery. So we choose layout with the crankcase longitudinal opened with the inserted line inside made by aluminium.
Yep.
That layout, all of the cylinder had to be installed directly on the crankcases.
Okay.
In order to achieve the required stiffness to make the engine part of the frame, because the engine is directly connected to this part, to this part of the frame, and this frame itself.
Yep. How, like when you're talking reducing capacity, reducing power, and then still attaining quite a different character for Ducati, because it has such a good delivery of torque, like a smooth delivery of torque. Like, how did you guys manage to pull that off? Because it's something very different to previous Ducati V-twins.
It is different, really different. But we think that for a mid-displacement, what makes the difference is not the peak power, but it is how the power and the torque is delivered.
Yeah.
And to obtain that kind of shape of torque curve that is really, really flat, consider that since 3000 RPM we have more than 70% of the torque, and from 4000 to 11,000 we have up to 80% of the torque. That is make the engine really, really prompt at with the prompt response at every open throttle. To reach that, we use a technology like the VVT in the intake valve.
No desmos.
No desmo anymore, but the VVT.
Can you explain to us a little bit how, because it's only work on the intake side, doesn't it?
Yes. It works on the intake. So being able to change the intake phase of the engine, we are able, continuously change, we are able to calibrate the engine according to the vehicle need at that specific operating point. That means that we was able to don't give up to the power at high revs and to the torque at low revs.
And you save a bit of weight as well without using the desmo system?
There is a weight saving, and also there is another benefit for the clients, that is the maintenance cost. We would not take any advantages using the desmo on this engine, because the revving are not so high, are not extreme of this engine. The limiter is just up to 11,000 RPM, and the masses of the timing system are not so relevant. Because we use for the first time in a Ducati engine also all stem intake valves to reduce masses, to reduce inertia. So we are perfectly able to control the valve motion even with a traditional spring timing system. The desmo system is really, really effective when the revs are much higher, or when the masses you have to move are relevant.
So it's more designed then to be able to work with bigger capacity.
More the more the display, the more the bore is bigger, the more you have bigger valves, and you need more the desmo system. But it's not the case of this engine.
So 52 millimeter throttle bodies?
Yes.
Interesting how like this entire airbox system, we're going to talk to the chassis engineers in a minute, but everything looks so compact, like it's very shrunk down and small, and it's very different for what I'm used to with these bikes.
Starting from scratch, we have been able to achieve this beautiful result.
How long did it take to build this engine? Like, when did you start developing this motor?
It's more or less 3.5 years ago.
And we see this in the Multistrada V2,
Panigale V2, Street Fighter V2, and let's see in the future.
Well, on that note, guys, we're going to go and probably have some lunch, come back, and we're going to talk to the chassis engineers.
The new Panigale V2 S enjoys an enormous reduction in weight compared to the old bike, 37 pounds to be precise. Ducati claiming the new V2 S tips the scales at 383 pounds, but that's without a 4-gallon tank of gas. With the tank topped, you can expect a number of around 407 pounds ready to ride. It's not just the weight that's a talking point though. A skinny monocoque frame, the same double-sided swing arm design as on the Panigale V4 S, and higher set clip-on handlebars, ones that now mount flush with the top triple clamp, give the Panigale an almost naked bike riding style. This alleviates much of the strain on your body so that you can do a 6-day session and it'll be a piece of cake. The Panigale is so slim, light and agile, it honestly feels like a big 250. So now it's time to chat with Stefano Vanucci, Ducati's vehicle project manager, to learn a little bit more about the chassis.
Okay, I'm here with Stefano Vanucci. He is the lead vehicle design manager, or which
Project manager.
project manager.
Vehicle project
There we go. Close enough. I was close.
yeah. Not too far.
He's the man who knows more about the chassis on these bikes than anybody. So please talk us through some of the big hits, because we've got the hollow swing arm, we've got a non-trellis subframe, new front frame, monocoque.
Front frame monocoque.
Right.
It was, of course, the main structural component of the bike.
Yeah.
Then, of course, it is the core of the chassis, because it let the engine to work as a stressed component.
Yeah.
You see that it connects the steering to the top of the engine.
Yep.
And in order to optimize the weight and the volume distribution, we use the monocoque to make the volume of the airbox.
Yes.
So this inside is the airbox of the bike. You see inside the frame the electronic throttle body, together with a complete fuel circuit.
Right.
Everything is inside the chassis, and so this solution, of course, give a great benefit in terms of distribution of the volume.
Yeah.
So then it is a great improvement when you have the definition of the layout of the vehicle. Yeah. So you see this bike is, if we just look at the structural part of the bike, it is very lean.
Yeah, it is.
So this is very compact, and then of course it helps on the definition of the surrounding components like the fuel tank and the fairings.
Yeah.
Then speaking about the rear frame, it is, as for the monocoque, is the aluminium, is a casting aluminium.
Yeah, so that's the first time for mid-displacement.
Yes, this is a big improvement compared to the previous Panigale V2, because there we had a trellis steel frame. This is because, I mean, usually the medium displacement bike was derived from the biggest Panigale. This was the standard approach that we used to follow before. In this case, of course, we changed our mind. We want to have a bike that had its own application. So. And to have the most benefit that we could have in terms of weight saving, we had to start the design from the scratch, from zero.
It has to be its own thing.
Yeah, exactly. Starting from the engine, then the engine was designed together with the chassis, because to optimize and to have the best integration we could have with the bike, the definition of on the engine layout was done together with the bike, with the complete bike layout.
And you also got the very controversial double-sided swing arm. That
it is another point.
I thought it was controversial until I rode the V4, and then I was like, wow, that thing's really good.
They are continuing to move. Yes, of course, the single-side whizzing arm is some of our tradition, but of course during the past experience that we had also on sport bike, on the Panigale V4, then we found a benefit to use this kind of hollow structure that of course is a double-sided swing arm, but is not a standard double-sided. You see the hollow structure is a typical structure that we have. This is something that you may see on the Panigale before, and then we put the same concept here on this Panigale V2. This of course help on the weight reduction that we were looking for, and keeping the same stiffness of the component.
Well, that's the thing, for a single-side swing arm to do the job of two arms, it has to be heavier and...
That's the reason. This is a bit, of course, in terms of, from the structural point of view, this solution is more efficient, let's say. Of course, on the other side, you have some benefit on the layout, for example, of the exhaust, because the single side give a more volume for the distribution of the exhaust, but in this case we found a good combination of the layout of the exhaust together with the layout of the swing arm, like we have on the Panigale V4.
Right.
Yes, this is another new approach for suspension. Of course, also this layout was the one that gave the most important benefit in terms of weight saving.
Yeah, yeah.
So with this solution we got the same performance that we have with the linkage system. Then we have the same rear suspension performance with this layout, but of course we have a great benefit in terms of weight, because here you have a direct shock absorber that is connected on the left side of the engine.
Yeah, much less components than is required.
Yeah. Less component, lighter, and direct connection to the left side of the engine. So in terms of also of the stress of the engine, this is a better solution.
Right. It is incredibly smooth out of corners. Like once you bury the throttle, it just sits down perfectly and tracks so well. Like it doesn't get upset or anything. It's just smooth, which is...
Yeah, of course here you have the all-in suspension on the S version, and of course they are the best, so they help a lot on the BV. But also on the standard one, the setting is made in order to have a similar feeling. So this is good as well. And then of course they are adjustable. Then now you have tested the let's call race setting. But at the same time, the range of adjustability of the suspension give you the possibility to have also a more comfortable setting that you can enjoy on road.
Yeah, that will be the next thing for us, is to do a street test, and especially with the higher handlebars and all that stuff that comes with it.
This is, I think, is another interesting aspect of the bike, because of course here we want to show you that the bike is good on track, is very agile and very light, very nice to ride on track, but will be very interesting and to see how the bike works on road, because it's a big step forward compared to the previous.
For sure. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, guys. I'm going to go for another ride.
You know those bikes that will will you on instead of beat you up? That's what the new V2 S is all about. After 6 sessions, I could have done 6 more, no problem. You can put the Panigale almost anywhere you want in the corner and change your mind or your line nearly as quickly. Again, it's a combination of the chassis, engine and electronics all working together, as lightweight and lower horsepower, not to mention the inertia associated with it, makes placing the bike anywhere you want on the track incredibly easy. As the Supersport class changes from being as hard-edged as possible to one that is now more inclusive of all riders, Ducati has hit first and hit hard.
Oof, that was a pretty lovely day on the brand new Ducati Panigale V2 S. As you've heard across the last bits of the video, ground up redesign. This is the first time that Ducati has made a purpose-built middleweight sports bike, shall we say. It's not basically a scaled down version of what they had on the Superbike. So what's it like to ride? Well, you know, you can guess. It was pretty damn good, I've got to say. Couple of main points that stood out. First, bar none for me, is how much more agile this bike is. It's been a couple of years, I think, since I last rode a V2, the previous generation V2. While that bike is a lot more aggressive, this bike is much more rider friendly. Part of it comes down to the lack of weight, part of it comes down to the ergonomics. The ergonomics on this I'm a huge fan of. Like those raised handlebars. For all these years we've been breaking our necks and breaking our backs by riding these clip-on handlebars. I've done 6 sessions and I feel like I could do another 6. Now if you've ever seen my video on the Panigale V4 from last year, I was shattered at the end of that. Like 6 sessions on that and I was done. Whereas this, much more a bit of a different story. Yeah, so the lack of weight is the biggest thing that I noticed personally. At the back section here at the Sevilla race circuit, it's just left, right, left, right, left, right. So you really get an idea of how much less girth this bike has in getting it from apex to apex to apex. Yeah, really enjoyable. It's nice when you can ride a bike that doesn't beat the crap out of you and kind of just like wants you to do more and get yourself going a little bit more. Didn't ride the standard version, only rode the S model with the Olin suspension. So NIX 34, you know, I've lost count of the amount of bikes I've ridden with the NIX 34. It's a brilliant thing. All we did across the day, I was sharing the bike with another rider. We put 2 turns of preload on the back, 2 turns on the front, and just call it done, and it was lovely. It's very, very good under brakes. High-speed braking, it's just solid as a rock. Like the front straight here at Sevilla, it's pretty quick, very quick actually. And you're going into an almost dead stop. It's a second gear, but it feels like it's dead stop left-hander. So the bike has to be really stable on the braking, otherwise you're just going to blow your corner entry and go straight into the gravel trap. It's really nice under braking. Doesn't get too upset, you know, even if you grab a big handful of brakes, it's quite good. That's another thing too. The brakes on this thing compared to the old one, night and day. M50 calipers, not exactly new calipers either. You know, M50s, I think if my memory serves me correctly, came out first on the Kawasaki, sorry, the sun's a bit gnarly, the Kawasaki ZX-10 back in, I think, 2016. So these things have been around for a long time. And Ducati superbikes have always come out with good Brembo brakes, you know, Stylema R, High Pure or whatever they're called now. So I actually thought this bike would be coming with Stylemas, but you know, that and the combination of the master cylinder, really good braking performance, doesn't give you anything like the sore, you know, arm pump from you constantly heaving on the lever, so that's a good thing as well. Now, aside from the lightness of the bike, I know I've said it before, but I'm a massive fan of these ergos. Like, I could race this bike tomorrow. It actually reminds me very much of my old TT bike, my BMW that I raced a couple of years ago at the Isle of Man, which we had, it was almost like a motocross, almost like naked bike style. Big, lots of room, lots of leverage, takes the weight off your back, takes it off your shoulders. We haven't had the chance to ride this on the street, and we will do so, but far out, I feel so much better as a result. Also then, that translates into not making as many mistakes because you don't get as tired. This whole bike is much less aggressive, and that brings me on to the motor. Now, the motor's best way I could describe the motor is very deceptive. It doesn't have that power kick that you get at low RPM, and it doesn't also have a peak power as well. It just goes all the way through. So you can be doing, you know, 8, 9, 10,000 RPM. It doesn't feel like you're going that fast. And this then goes back to that whole thing of the bike not beating you up like the old one did. So that took a long time, much more longer than I would have thought to get used to. You are going quick, the lap times are coming down, but it doesn't have that, I'm going to say the word excitement, it doesn't have that really exciting kind of rush that you would get from an old V-twin, or even for that matter any of the regular Supersport competition. And funnily enough, it doesn't really feel like a V-twin, it almost feels more like a triple in the way it makes its torque. So it's a bit of a conundrum, that, and in a way I'm still not quite used to it, but hey, the proof's in the pudding. Like, the lap times were quick and they were repeatable, and it just needed a recalibration of my brain. Ducati's got a new quick shifter for this, the quick shifter 2.0 and DQS 2.0, lovely piece of kit. There was a bit of talk at this launch of having some quick shifter problems, and as it turns out, the bikes weren't calibrated properly, and the boys at Ducati last night went and calibrated all the bikes properly, or all the quick shifters properly, I should say, and I had no problem with it. It is really, really light. It's just snick, snick, snick. When you're coming back through the gears at high RPM, you need to be a bit careful. You have to do your braking, let the revs drop a little bit, and then start snicking gears. It definitely doesn't like it when you start bashing back through gears at really high RPM. So you've got to be a bit mindful of that. It's not a bike, it still doesn't like a rushed riding style, this bike. You've got to be quite deliberate in your movements. But now at $18,995 MSRP in the United States, yep, it's still Ducati pricey, Let's be honest about it. But look, this is a new bike for the class. The Super Sport class is in its big transition phase. This is what we're going to have now for the next, however long, probably generation. Those days of super high horsepower super sport bikes are going away, and I kind of am sort of happy with that, because 120 horsepower, that's really all you need. You can have plenty of fun with 120 horsepower. Talking to the guys today, they reckon with the race kit that's going to get developed and all the bits and pieces that will come out for this bike over the next year or two, 140 horsepower when you go turn them into race bikes is going to be expected, I think. And this bike's going up against the YZF R9, that's what everyone's talking about. In America, you've also got the GSX-R 750, which everyone knows how much I love that bike. You got the 636 Kawasaki. So it's in that point of the old stuff and the new stuff. So I think the market will actually adopt this bike quite well, particularly, as I say, back to the ergonomics, because it's so comfy to ride. People love sports bikes. I love sports bikes. I don't look at touring bikes when they go past. I look at the sports bike going past, and I want to see more people on sports bikes. But I get it, they aren't that comfortable. Also too, while I'm talking about comfort, I didn't have, and I only realized this until the end of the day, I had no problems with heat. Now Ducati has come out and changed a lot of the front to make sure you get as much cooling air as you can, because as we famously know, Ducati V-twins, they crank out a fair amount of heat. I had no problems today with heat, which I was really surprised at, and it only dawned on me when another guy told me. But I was like, oh yeah. So what they've actually done is worked. They've created different ducts at the front and in here, so just near the frame and from the bodywork, that cooling air comes down, hits you right in the legs. It works. Can't argue with it. So well done to Ducati for that. Electronics wise, it's pretty par for the course with this bike. Nothing sticks out that I haven't talked about in previous tests before. It's 6-axis IMU with lean angle sensitive traction control, wheeler control, ABS, all that stuff. It works. It's not new. I'm sure there's a couple of electronic strategies that are different, but nothing sticks out in my mind. I didn't get the ABS working once, even though I tried. Not by just being ham-fisted, but tried really heavy braking. So that shows how well balanced this bike is, that it isn't kicking in the ABS. Overall, it's still got this silly looking switch block here, which is the same as on the Multistrada V2, and I really don't like it. But it is what it is. It's easy to use with racing gloves. Use winter gloves, probably going to be a bit of a different situation. But the dash is easy enough to use. It's not very big, but it's clear enough, and once you get to understand it, it's easy enough to use. But yeah, wheeling control, traction, all that stuff, it's the same stuff that we've had now for quite a while, and it works just as well as it's always done. Anyway guys, that's a bit of a wrap up on the brand new Ducati Panigale V2 S. We will also be getting in the standard model, and that's $3,000 less, $15,995 MSRP in the United States. But yeah, if you want to have the real Ducati flavor, you're going to go for the S with the Öhlins. It's a really, really good bike. It's a surprising bike. It's a little perplexing, but yeah, still, it's a Ducati superbike. It's a Ducati sports bike. It's not a superbike. It's a Ducati sports bike through and through. Right guys, that's it for us here in Spain. I am exhausted. I am going to go to bed because I'm seriously jet lagged. Anyway, if you like this content, please give us a thumbs up and give us a comment underneath, and I'll do my best to get back to you. Until then, keep it rubber side down. I'll see you then. Cheers.